Welcome back, SEC This Morning, presented by Yellowwood. Peter Burns and Chris Doring. Hit us up on Twitter at Peter Burns, ESPN, at Chris Doring. We're going to be opening up the phone lines here in a couple of minutes.
Should be fun.
I'm ready.
Are you
be ready, Frank Fowler.
More gloating or more counseling session?
I think we're going to have a little bit of Monday morning therapy and a little bit of it all. 833-814-0732 is the number. That's 833-814-0732. That's the number when we do this show every single morning. We do this all year long over on Sirius XM channel 374. And so the opportunity, this is the last time we're doing it on television this week. So he's like, we got to get some really good looking people to do it, right? Unfortunately, I'm the only one here on this set, but now we're bringing in another person that's really good looking. He's Sam Webb, Michigan insider, talking about this Wolverines team. Hey, you got to be. I would imagine. Look at that grin, man. You're grinning, and you should be happy ear to ear. Michigan is playing in the college football playoff. Oh, how nervous was Michigan faithful going into that game against Iowa?
Yeah, I was telling you guys before I came on that I think Michigan fans have PTSD from the disappointment over the last couple of seasons. I mean, you go back to 2016, everyone talks about the loss to Ohio State. The loss to Iowa is probably the game that was more costly because not only did they lose that game, but Wilton Speight broke his collarbone in that game, which affected him in the Ohio State game, couldn't throw the football down the field. So I understand some of the nervousness and trepidation, but it was always a game, at least to me, that if they were focused on, they were going to win going away. I picked Michigan to win that game 35-10. They wound up doing even better than that. You got great senior leadership. You got a big-time player in Aiden Hutchinson that can will his team. And you got excellent coaching, great complementary football being coached up by this staff that Jim Harbaugh put together in the offseason. They had all the ingredients to do what they did on Saturday.
Sam, great segue to what I wanted to ask you, and it had to do with Jim Harbaugh. And we talked a little bit earlier about him going to the administration, taking a pay cut, being incentivized for his compensation going forward. I give the Michigan Athletic Department a lot of credit for showing patience and not pulling the trigger on making a change where I think a lot of other athletic directors probably would have. What have you seen from this year's version of Jim Harbaugh as the head coach and the coaching staff around them that was different, or was it not different than what you'd seen in previous years?
Very different. A terrific question, because this is really the story. The changes Jim Harbaugh made in the offseason and the changes he was allowed to make. You got to look in the mirror and say, I'm going to make some sweeping changes on defense, and then I'm going to get the chemistry better on offense. And you got to have an admin, an AD like Ward Manuel that's willing to let you do it. So starting with the defense, Don Brown, great coach, forgot more football than many of us will ever know, but the book was out on him in the Big Ten, right? And the book was especially out on him with Ohio State. I mean, think about Ryan Day. Not only had the benefit of seeing him over time at Ohio State, but he worked with Don Brown at Boston College. He knew what adjustments Don Brown was and wasn't going to make. And that was a big issue because if you look at the games in 2018 and 2019 with Ohio State, fellas, those were games at halftime. One possession or two possession games, 28-16, I think it was in 2019. But then they blew them out in the second half. No adjustments. You go, you get Mike McDonald, you add a Steve Clinkscale to the mix, George Hilo, you got guys who have more alternatives to throw at opposing offenses, and that has been very beneficial. Then on offense, Josh Gaddis, Jim Harbaugh, getting Sharon Moore as the offensive line coach, Mike Hart as the running back coach, moving Jay Harbaugh back to tight end. The chemistry on the offensive staff, so much better, and they identified what they are. And the talent on this team means we need to be a pound-the-rock team that is less quarterback dependent than we were, and we can win football games like that. That's exactly what they did.
Sam Webb, Michigan insider, 24/7 Sports, joining us here in SEC This Morning. And Sam, when you look at I assume you watched the SEC championship game and you saw what Georgia did or did not do. How does that carry over into this college football playoff game?
So what I saw was a team that is not used to playing from behind. That when forced to have to match offense with the team, and granted, Bama is not just any team, so let me qualify this statement. But you expect the championship team to be able to match the opposition, to have the offensive firepower, especially when spotted a lead to keep pace, and they couldn't. When push came to shove, their offense couldn't answer the bell against a team that other teams have had some success. Other offenses have had success against that defense. This is not a vintage Bama defense, and this Georgia team couldn't do it. So I think that's a circumstance that Michigan has faced, they've met, and they've conquered. They've had to play from behind against Ohio State at home and came back. They've been behind on the road and came back, right? I think it's a more tested team. And then when you look at what they are, how they identify themselves, it's about physicality and toughness, running games, travel. So you got a lot of Michigan fans that are all shook by this Georgia defense like it's the steel curtain. It's very good, the best Michigan has faced. Michigan's going to pound the rock, not to the point of futility. They are going to run into a brick wall, and that's all they do. They have alternatives, but their offense is predicated on the run game. And if you slow it down or if you take it away, they don't abandon it, but they use your emphasis on that part of their offense to their advantage in their throw game. So Cade McNamara's got to step up and make more plays, J.J. McCarthy too, but not to the point where they get away from their run game. And when you compare the quarterback scenarios, this is where I think the real difference in this game lies. Michigan, I think, is better at the quarterback position than Georgia is. And Michigan, while they're facing a really tough defense, don't have to face Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo, the two best defensive ends in the country.
I'm glad you mentioned Aiden Hutchinson, Sam. I want to know a little bit more about him. We've heard a lot down in this part of the country about guys like Jordan Davis and Will Anderson being considered for the Heisman Trophy. But what about Aiden Hutchinson makes him so good, and should he be an invite to New York in December?
Absolutely. Damn right. He should be the number one draft pick, too. Lions don't outthink the room on him. This is an easy pick. Man, he's a guy that when you talk about, to me, your best player's got to show up every game, especially the big games. And against Ohio State, he came out and was dominant. Against Iowa in the Big Ten Championship, I mean, he's running through these guys like they aren't even there. And so every single game, Aiden Hutchinson showed up and impacted it. He is now the all-time sack leader in Michigan history. And when you take it beyond the field, this is a guy that rallied the program from a player perspective. Jim Harbaugh from a coaching perspective, but from a player perspective, they're behind Aiden Hutchinson. It's in his image. It's through his leadership that they go. So he has all the ingredients that you look for in a Heisman Trophy winner, let alone invitee, and certainly a guy who I think is worthy of being the number one overall draft pick. He'll show up, and I think this is the matchup that Georgia has to be most concerned with is how do you account for Aiden Hutchinson? Mm-hmm. And the problem that it poses for opposing offenses is, all right, when you start to gear towards him, you got this other guy who Mel Kiper says is going to be a first-round draft pick that you got a single block. You can't help on both sides. That means David Ojabo is going to go off. Mm-hmm. I think that this is the matchup, at least for Georgia, that's going to be the most problematic.
Well, and we saw that happen. Georgia had to deal with Will Anderson, and guess what? Other guys popped off for Alabama in that SEC championship game. Sam, last question for you. Assuming Alabama does get by Cincinnati and they're going into the national championship in Indianapolis, who are they going to be playing?
I think they're going to be playing Michigan. I know that SEC country is Paul Feinbaum land, and people worship at the feet and at the words that he espouses to you. But I think that this Michigan team, belief is a powerful thing. And once you bully the one that's been bullying you, you think you can bully anybody. Mm. And I think that's where Michigan is right now. Again, not to the point of futility, but to the point of they aren't intimidated in this matchup. They're going in this game expecting to beat them. And I think that now finally the belief has caught up. The belief in the coaching has caught up with the talent that they have. And I just think the matchups, defensive ends versus their tackles, Michigan's running game and the throw game that comes off of it, I think it's going to be enough for Michigan to get by Georgia in this game.
Sam, down here in the SEC footprint, Alabama used the disrespect card heading into the SEC championship game. Is that one that the Michigan fans and the team is using, being the number 2 overall seed and being a touchdown underdog in this game?
Team, yes. Fans, no. I think you got some shook fans out here, just like they were shook before the Ohio State game. And I told people all week long that Michigan was going to beat Ohio State. I told them how Michigan was going to beat Ohio State, that they were going to pound the rock. They were going to use their offense as part of their defense. that Ohio State wasn't going to be able to block Aiden Hutchinson in this game. And I'm telling these fans the same thing. Georgia has a great defense, the best Michigan has faced. But you know what? Michigan has the best combination of offensive line and running back that Georgia has seen. The kind of team that can put the pressure on their offense to match. And I don't think that they're going to be able to do it. So time will tell.
We cannot wait. We got a couple of weeks to break it down. Sam Webb, Michigan
Awesome
Insider.
stuff, man.
Awesome stuff. We'll continue to catch up with you as we get a little bit closer to that big matchup, all right?
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
There
Thank
it
you,
is.
man.
Great energy. There he said.
That
Michigan.
should play well with all of our fans here from the state of Georgia.